Hi everyone. So friends, in our last lecture, we discussed about @value source annotation, and we also saw that how we can use @value source annotation to provide different arguments in the form of an array to our @parameterized test. So friends, in this lecture we will see that how we can provide null and empty values to our @parameterized test. So in our JUnit 5 project, under source folder, in our example package, I will create a class. Let's say I give a name to it as string helper. I will keep it in a package com.hubberspot.junit5.example. We'll click finish. So inside this string helper class, I will be creating a method public whose return type would be string, and let's say I give a name to it as reverse, and this method will take a string, and what it will do, it will simply reverse this string and return. So here inside this method, first what we will do, we'll simply provide an if condition. Let's say if input is null, then simply return null, and if let's say input is empty, we'll simply return empty value, because if the input is null, we can't reverse it, we'll simply return null. And if our input is empty, then when we reverse an empty string, we get empty value, so we'll simply return empty. And then what we'll do, we'll simply convert this input string to a character array by calling input.toChar_array method. So friend, as we want to reverse this input string, we are converting it into a character array. Then what we'll do, we'll simply reverse this string character by character. Therefore we are storing this string in the form of a character. So here now we'll simply create two variables. Let's say start, we'll give a value as 0. We'll create an integer variable and we'll give it a value as so friends, here we have created two variables, start and end. So these variables simply point to the 0th index and to the last index of this character array. Now what we'll do, we'll simply provide a while loop, and inside this while loop we'll simply provide a condition as till start is less than end. We'll simply iterate, and here what we'll do, we'll simply swap the value at start index with the value at end index. So here we'll simply create a temporary character. We'll store the value at start index, and then we'll simply swap the value at end index with start, and then we'll simply assign value temp to end. So friends, here we are simply swapping these values by first storing the start value to temp, then storing the end value to start, and then simply storing the temp value to end. So this will simply swap the values at start index with end index, and after swapping we'll simply move start by one position and we'll move end index backward by decrementing it by 1. And friend, finally we'll simply return the reversed character array by converting it back to string and simply returning it back from the reverse method. So friends, here you can see that we have created a method reverse which will take a string and it will reverse the string and will simply return. So here what we are doing, we are simply converting this input string to a char array. We are starting with the first index and last index. We are swapping them and simply we are moving the start by 1 and decrementing end by 1, and then we are simply swapping it again, and this will get continued till start is less than end, and when start becomes equal to end or greater than end, then we'll simply breaking the while loop, and whatever is stored in this character array will be the reverse of this input string. So we are simply returning this character array by converting it back to a string. So friends, now let's go to our test folder. We'll see how we can use @null source and @empty source to test the reverse method of string helper class. So here I will be creating one test class. We'll give a name to it as null and empty source demo. We'll keep it in a package. com.hoverspot.junit5.parameterize_test.null and empty source. We'll click finish. So here in our null and empty source demo test class, what we'll do, we'll simply create a parameterized test. We have created a method test reverse demo. We'll import @parameterized test from awk.junit.jupyter.params. So friends, now we'll provide a source. So here first we'll demonstrate @null source. We'll import it. So here the null source is present in awk.junit.jupyter.params.provider package. So we'll import it, and here we'll simply say string input. So inside this parameterized test, we'll first create the instance of string helper class. And then we'll simply call the reverse method by passing in the input. So this would be our actual value. We'll assert it using assert equals with an expected value, let's say null. So here we are using the null source. So we are sending a null value to reverse. So we know that if input is null, we'll get a null value returned back. And here we are asserting it with null. Or what we can do is, as we'll get the null value, we can simply say assert null, and here we can simply call this method. We'll import assert null. So if I run this test case, so you can see the test case got executed successfully. It implicitly passed a null value when we used @null source. So this string got a null value, and we simply asserted that whatever it's returned, it's a null value. So here we can simply change the name of the method as test reverse with null source. Now we'll simply copy this method and we'll see the demonstration of empty source. So we'll import @empty source, and here we'll change the name of the method as test reverse with empty source. So here I will be removing this assertion, because when we are passing an empty value to reverse method, we will get back an empty value. So here I am simply doing like this. So if I run the test case now, so you can see the test case got executed successfully because it passed an empty value, and when we called the reverse method with empty value, we got the empty value back. So friend, now let's see the demonstration of null and empty source together. So we'll import null and empty source, and here I will give the test name as test reverse with null and empty source. So friends, here we know that now instead of one single value here as null and here as empty, now we are using @null and empty source. So this test will be called twice, one with the null value and other with the empty value. So here we'll simply assert that when we pass the input as null, we get a null back. So here when we pass our input as null to reverse, we'll get back a null value. So we are expecting it to be null. And when we pass an empty string to reverse, we are expecting an empty string back. So if I run the test case now, so here you can see the test case got executed successfully, and here you can see it ran twice. One it ran with a null value, and second it ran with an empty value. And also friends, we can even combine @null source with @empty source together. So we'll give the name of the test method as test reverse with null and empty source combined. So if I run the test case now, we'll get the same output what we saw here. So here you can see that this parameterized test ran twice, one with the null value and other with the empty value. So friends, in this lecture we saw the demonstration of how we can use @null source, @empty source, @null and empty source, and @null and empty source together. I hope you like this video. Thanks, have a nice day.